You know, he's got just yeah.
Hey there, fellow citizens of the internet. Welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast. Today I have with me Faris. And Faris, welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast.
Hey Moses, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here today with you.
Okay, and speaking of being here today, what are we talking about? What are we getting into?
Well, we're going to have a rip-roaring conversation all about my life, your life, travels. I talk a lot about emotional intelligence. I run a little business which is all about bringing more emotional intelligence to strategy. We work with companies, we work with individuals, basically making people more effective today than they were yesterday. So we're going to talk a lot about that and how I got to doing this. There's been an exciting journey to get to this point, and I'm sure we'll have lots of exciting things to explore and talk about.
And where are you calling from?
I'm in London, United Kingdom. So, not only that, we're bringing a transatlantic twist to proceedings today.
Okay. Born and raised?
I am born and raised in London. I've spent about 10 years living elsewhere. But I always say it's like I've got a giant bungee cord on my back. I may run away, I may go somewhere else, but it always snaps back at some point and I come back to London. It's a great city, but there are loads of great cities out there, so I love exploring them all.
Okay, well, so let's just hop right into it. Emotional intelligence, you say?
I do, yeah.
I've heard that term just thrown around left and right. Can you unpack that for me? Like, what is it? What does it entail? What does it not entail? And
I mean, emotional intelligence, and you'll find lots of great definitions out there. And, I like to try not to get down the academic route. But for me, emotional intelligence is about your ability to read yours and other people's emotions, right? And then to do something with them, right? And I like to think of emotionally intelligent people as the kind of people you like to spend time with, right? Because they get you. They get themselves, when I used to work in consulting, I still do it. But in one of the companies I worked at, we used to have what we called the airport test when you're interviewing someone for a job. And that fundamentally means, imagine the scenario that you were at an airport with that person and your plane got cancelled for 24 hours. Would you be happy sitting in the airport with that one person for 24 hours? Or would that be like, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world, right? And that airport test for me is a really good sign of, if there is someone you would spend 24 hours with, then they probably have great emotional intelligence. They are easy to talk to. It just feels natural. They get you, you get them. Those are all great indicators of people with high emotional intelligence.
Okay. So I think kids these days would call that having good vibes.
Having good vibes, yeah.
Yeah. Are you the type of person that brings good vibes, or are you the type of person that, it's a little bit hard to do life with? So how did your emotional intelligence, you call that EQ? How did that expand? Okay. How did that expand through your travels around the world?
Oh, I mean, having a high EQ and high emotional intelligence means when you go to a foreign country, you can assimilate quicker, right? You sort of take on different perspectives. You learn new stuff. It's the difference between going on holiday and going, do you know what? I want to discover more about this culture rather than I'm just going to stay in the hotel room and watch the same TV I watch at home, eat the same foods. It's not a like for like, but certainly. I have spent many years living in countries that have got completely different cultures to where I grew up. And so sort of exposing myself to those cultures has allowed me to become more flexible, more adaptable, understand people who come from completely different points of view to me. And I think that serves me well, even when I go back to my own culture.
And I was in London a couple of times, and it is such a diverse city to be in. Culturally, I mean, it's just, you'll find people from all walks of life, so to speak. And now, so do you find it that when people move to a big city like London, and they're coming from a small town from a different country, or maybe even within Europe, but they're not accustomed to just that much cultural. What do we call it in the U.S.? Mixed pot. What do we call it here? There's a term that we have for it.
Yeah.
No. It's we call it like when you have like a giant
melting pot,
and like you throw in ingredients. Melting pot.
Pot. Cultural melting pot. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find it that people that are new to London are like might have like this like shock in how much diversity that there is?
I think big cities like London, it can be really shocking, right? Not just the melting pot of cultures, but the size and the complexity, right? There's a whole set of rules to any city, like how do I get from A to B? What does this language mean? Where's all the cheap food? Where's the good food? So that just it kind of hits you. But the other great thing about somewhere like, on the flip side, the great thing about somewhere like London is you can pretty much find every culture around the world. Now, I've got a bunch of friends, and we've been doing for years what we call the A to Z for you Americans restaurant game, right? So every month we go through a different letter of the alphabet, and whatever the letter is, someone in the group has to pick a restaurant from a country that begins with that letter. Okay. Now, the more exotic, the better. So, if it's the letter A, they could pick an Australian restaurant, or an Austrian, or an Argentinian restaurant, or an Andorran restaurant, or or an Alabama restaurant, right? And the next month is B, and then C. And we reckon pretty much London is the only city in the world that you can do every letter of the alphabet multiple times over. Right, because you will find every community here. So the great thing is, if you turn up, as long as you can find them, you'll probably find your community, and that's what a lot of people do when they move to London. They find people who look like them, smell like them, eat like them, because it's an easier, safer way into a new city.
Yeah. I first had that experience when I moved to Los Angeles. And it's one of those cities that is just you have people from all walks of life. They just happen to be within the same. Los Angeles is actually pretty wide city. But there was like a month or so that I was just shocked at the amount of diversity that there was. Not in a bad way, but it's like, whoa, like if you're walking down Venice, you'll just hear Spanish, you'll hear Chinese, Mandarin more specifically, you hear English, you hear all kinds of languages left and right. And it's just, everybody's just there, in one place doing life together. So speaking of languages, this probably goes without saying, but like, can you highlight on the benefits of traveling and also while being an English speaker and how that facilitates things?
Well, it definitely facilitates things. I mean, English is one of the most spoken languages in the world, so it's great to be able to go most places nowadays, and you'll find somebody who speaks English. So if you're in a lot of trouble, but and nowadays there's a lot of technology to help you out, right? Google Translate, other kind of translations help. But there is a limit, and you'll see this recurring pattern in everything I say. Everything has a positive, but it has a downside, right? If English is your native tongue, you can get a bit lazy, right? You're not going to learn other people's languages. You're not going to put in as much effort. Now, I'm really lucky. I grew up bilingual, so I grew up with English and Arabic, right? So I was always flipping between languages with my parents and brothers and sisters, and definitely I think that gave me the curiosity to carry on learning languages, but B, it just made it easier. I think my brain was wired to go, do you know what? I just pick up another language. So over the years, I've gone and lived in Latin America, so I learned Spanish. Right? I lived in Southern Asia. I lived in Nepal, so I learned Nepali. I lived back in the Middle East, so just flipped into Arabic. So I've lived in lots of different countries, and I've always made it a point of learning, the language, getting to know the culture. Hey, I was earlier this year, I was in Ethiopia, and so I took a bit of time just to learn a few words of Aramaic, just to A, to find out what it was like, and B, it just made such a difference when chatting to people in bars and restaurants, and so I love it, but I totally appreciate not everyone has that mindset.
No, definitely not. But it's like, speaking English just facilitates crossing borders. Well, there's a train going by.
Yeah, It's like,
Perfect.
there you go. There's a new adventure to a new country already happening. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the second train of the day. They usually just go by once a day.
Okay.
But anyways, I got distracted here. So yeah, just the benefits of speaking English while traveling. Just you're almost always going to run into someone that can help you, right? If you're speaking English, but Arabic, that's a hard one, no? That's a hard language to speak.
It is hard. So there's a lot of research saying Arabic and Chinese are and like Russian, ones that have a completely different alphabet, are a lot harder for Western speakers to learn because you're wrapping your head around lots of different sounds, different alphabet. But as I said, for me it was easy because I grew up with it. It was like I get a free one. Right? My parents spoke Arabic, so we spoke Arabic. They spoke to us in the house growing up, and that just goes to show how amazing the human brain, particularly when you're a child, is. You just absorb stuff, right? And the only reason we find it difficult, in my opinion, learning languages as an adult, is because of our fear of failure, right? When you're a child, everyone gives you the time and space to make mistakes, and they correct you when you go wrong. When you're an adult, they laugh at you, going, "Oh, I can't believe you don't know that word. I can't believe you got that wrong. You said it right." If we had the same environment as children, we'd all learn a few more languages. Is what I believe.
So what language is next on your bucket list?
It depends where life takes me. Right? I've dabbled with a few other languages. My work nowadays takes me around. I still travel a lot for work, mostly to Europe. I seem to spend a lot of time in Germany. I haven't learned any German as yet because it's really funny because everyone in Germany speaks really good English, or there's a lot of Turkish and Syrian refugees. So actually, I speak just as much Arabic in Germany as I do English sometimes. So it's very funny. But yeah, who knows? It depends where work or life takes me. I'm sure I haven't learnt my last language yet.
Okay.
What about you?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, what about you? What languages are you drawn to, Moses?
Oh, jeepers. That's a little bit more complicated. So I've learned, spoken, and forgotten several languages. So I grew up speaking. There's a country called Mozambique, and there's a province there called Maputo, and in that province there's a language called Mashangan that they speak there. So I grew up speaking that, and I also grew up speaking Portuguese. But before Mashangan, I most likely spoke Swahili and Kinyarwanda because that's the language of my biological parents. And so, but by the time I learned Mashangan, I completely forgot Swahili and Kinyarwanda. Now, later on, like 10 years later, I relearned Swahili and Kinyarwanda. So then, when I came to the States, I learned English, of course, and then I figured out that Spanish and Portuguese are pretty much neighbors. So I spent some time learning some Spanish. So now I am eyeing French and Italian. So I think Italian is gonna be my next one. But somewhere between Italian and French. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question specifically.
But I think just as interesting a question is you said next is going to be Italian, French. Why is that? Is there a specific objective in mind, or you just like learning languages, or you just want to challenge yourself? What's the driving force?
Yeah, well, so for one, my partner in crime, she's Italian, so
okay, well, there's a big factor.
I can't. Yeah, I can't quite communicate with her folks, so I'm gonna be able to speak with them, and then French, it's also another one of those languages that is well spoken across the world. Not as much as Spanish, but or English or Mandarin. But I already have Spanish under my belt, and I already have English under my belt. So I guess somewhat makes sense to get French on top of that. But yeah, the fact that I speak multiple languages has just opened up way too many opportunities. And I've come to learn that like a language is not just the words that are spoken, right? It's the nuances, it's the jokes, it's the little linguistic things that if you just learn the language through like the dictionary or like the formal education, you might miss it. So and along with the language, it comes the food. So it's not just the language itself. It cascades into multiple aspects of that particular culture that you're learning the language from. So I'm pretty fascinated about languages, even though I don't like spend like too much time going through the formal ways of learning a language. I prefer like what do you call it? Not immersion. I prefer immersion. Right? So spend 2-3 months in a particular place that speaks the language and just deal with it. So yeah,
it's a great way. Yeah, like you said, language is just a gateway to so much more.
Yep, exactly. So I think we've touched on languages quite a bit. You mentioned that you have a business. Can you go a little bit more into that?
Yeah, sure. So my business, as I said, is all about bringing emotional intelligence to strategy. So if you think about it, there's a lot of great strategies. There's a lot of great ideas out there. Okay, not all of them. In fact, the majority of them never come to fruition. And that's not because of the quality of the idea. It's because the inability to take others on the journey with you, right? If you have a great idea, and this is something I discovered, I spent 12 years as a strategy consultant, a big brain for hire. Okay, the kind of world of McKinsey, Booz, Bain, that sort of thing, where you are hired by companies to solve complex problems. Now, what fascinated me in the 12 years I did that is 90% of the work that we did never got anything got done. It didn't get done fully, right? So we'd present a report saying, here's your strategy, here's what you should do. And 9 times out of 10, they wouldn't do it. Now, the reason wasn't because the answer was bad. The reason was they didn't, for one reason or another, believe it, or they didn't get excited by it, or they did like it, or they were doing too much, or there was politics. So there's all these other human problems around ideas and strategy. So when I realized this, and I realized I was very good at fixing those problems, I set up a company to really help them. Okay, so we go in and we work with teams to get them aligned around strategy, get them aligned around anything, get them working better together. Okay, break down those barriers that stops people from buying into things and getting excited by things. So that's where the emotional intelligence comes in, because you need to understand those people. What's holding them back? What are they finding challenging about this? So we love it. We get in the middle of teams, or we teach leaders to do what we do, and it makes such a difference for companies and for individuals. And I've been doing it for 4 years now.
Okay. Well, so then I guess the number one question that comes to mind here is like, what might sound like a very cliche question here to ask, but what makes an individual a leader, like within the framework of a company?
Well, a title sometimes makes you a leader, but really you're a leader if you have followers. Okay, you're not a leader just because you have it, just because you wake up one morning and go, I'm a leader, right? Even having a job title doesn't mean you're a leader. All right, I've got a friend whose mantra is, look, when there's something that goes wrong, look for the eyes in the room. Who everyone looks at, that's the leader, whether they have the title or not. Okay, right? So, yeah, that's what a leader is. Someone who, now, what are the skills that make that person is the ability to communicate, the ability to listen, the ability to make decisions, to think strategically. But it all flows back to if people trust them and look for their opinion, then that for me is a good definition of a leader.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that X amount of times that you would provide counsel to a company, provide a solution to a problem, they would not carry it through. So that kind of like touches on one of the things that I like to talk about a lot, which is like you might have a conceptual understanding of something, but then the distance between your conceptual understanding and the implementation of that understanding, it can be very vast, right? So there's something that keeps people from carrying through with what they know, right? Applying their knowledge in real life. So are you able to like break? You kind of touched on it a little bit. You're like, maybe they don't like the solutions, maybe. So, but can you expand on like why have you noticed, or like some of the reasons why people don't carry out with a solution that is clearly good that is the proper solution for the problem that they're trying to solve?
Yeah. Well, a big one, there's lots of different reasons why people don't buy into solutions, but a big one is because it's not their solution. Okay. Think of the difference. If I come to you and say, Moses, here's something, you've got to do it. Right. You are less likely to do it than if the idea came from you, or you felt you had co-created it with me. So that's a big one. Like, whose idea is it? It shouldn't be, but we attach significance and certainly stuff we designed ourselves or were involved in, we did, right? So I often tell the story of Apple, the iStore. Okay, when Apple first created the iStore, they would, in their stores, they would take all the iPads and they would turn them 10 degrees askew. Okay, on purpose, right?
Okay.
The reason being that when a human being walks in and sees the iPad on the wall slightly askew, it's a bit like seeing a painting slightly askew, what's the first thing they do?
Oh, you want to correct it.
You want to correct it. You reach out, you touch it, you correct it. Here's what they discovered. As soon as the person touches it, they are twice as likely to buy it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Just that connection. It's the same with strategy. If you leave it 10% slightly askew and give it to somebody to fix a little bit, they will feel like they own it. They're more likely to buy it rather than just drop it on them, right? Anytime you want to land an idea, get people excited, but I think it starts with getting them involved earlier rather than dropping it on them. All right.
Okay. So if I can summarize that, it sounds like you're saying that instead of providing the full solution to someone, you want to make sure that they are part of the solution design process, or they have some sort of investment in it, right?
Yeah. Let them have some investment, some input. Yeah. But that's a lot of reasons why people resist, whether explicitly or implicitly. And then there's other reasons. Yeah. It might be, people put their own interests first. So if I present you a new strategy, the first thing your brain will go to is, what does this mean for me? Is this more work? Is this less work? Is this going to be lots of late nights? Yeah. That sounds difficult. They might not articulate all these things, but this is where the emotional intelligence, put yourself in their shoes. They will go through all these things going, it's easier to just stick with what we're doing. And that's not their fault, right? Yeah. I often say human beings, whether rightly or wrongly, have three characteristics: that they are lazy, selfish, and very easily distracted. Okay, all these date back from caveman times.
Yeah,
right. Our brain is wired this way. Always follow the easiest path, right? Always look after yourself first. Always look out for new things because they could be a threat or they could be an opportunity. But that means that those things apply when you roll out a new strategy or a new idea. People go, the laziness kicks in. They're like, is there an easier way to do this? Or, is this harder than I currently do? Their selfishness kicks in. What's in it for me? How do I directly benefit from this? And their ability to be distracted. If something else comes along, they'll go and do that, maybe instead of what you've asked them to do.
Okay, and so you said that you've been on this for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
One, can you in this past 4 years can you touch on the biggest obstacle that you've run into, right?
Yeah.
And two, where do you see the next 4 years going, and what is the roadmap?
Yeah, sure.
Like for you?
That's a roadmap. I love a good roadmap. I'm a strategy guy. Let me talk back. So if we go back 4 years, so those of you who could do the math with me, means I set up this company in the late summer of 2019. Okay, so which is 6 months before COVID came around. So the journey of the company was get a little bit of traction, pick up a bit of work, begin to feel like, okay, maybe we're making some progress here. Then COVID hit, everything fell off a cliff.
Bam.
Right? We lost all our clients overnight. A couple of them went bankrupt, so we never got paid. But more importantly, it meant we had no work for 6 months. Okay, because nobody was buying this kind of work because there was global pandemic, right? They're much more focused on that. Then that makes complete sense. So that was a major challenge, right? Because I had quit my job, I put everything into this, and I got a lot of, both there was financial pressure, but a lot of people putting pressure, going, well, what are you going to do? Maybe you should go back to your old job. And there wasn't an old job to go back to because of the pandemic. So that was the first major obstacle: how to get through that mentally, financially, those sort of things. So, managed to get through that, kept a routine, focused on the business, and got ready for when the world opened up again. And so then in September 2020, we were able to get back into things, win the first piece of work, and basically relaunch the business. So that's and then we've been growing ever since. Yeah, but there are hurdles along the way. I mean, running a small business is a roller coaster, right? Ups and downs all the time, right? You either love it or you don't, and I think it really attracts a certain kind of personality type. So that's kind of like a synopsis of the last 4 years, and I can give you way more detail than that. But over that time, I've been able to grow a team. So whereas it started just as me, I now have a team of 6 who help me deliver the work. We've gone from just a client in the UK. We now have clients around the world. We're doing some interesting stuff. We work with some big companies. We work with lots of small companies as well. So it's quite a different place now in 4 years. So where am I going to be in 4 years? What's the roadmap? It's just to continue growing, right? We have one metric at the moment in this company that we measure. We measure every Friday, and it is how much fun have we had as a team this week. Okay. And as long as we keep scoring high levels, then that for me is my main goal. Right. And the thing turns out, the more fun we have, the more money we seem to make. Right. But money's not the focus. It was about fun. It was about growth. So we, fast forward 4 years, we'll probably be a bigger team, maybe 20 people. Right. We're not going to be a giant empire. We'll have we'll have a bigger portfolio of clients, but we'll still do the same kind of fun work. And we'll be making a difference. So that's what excites me about this business.
Okay, well, elaborate on fun.
I will elaborate.
For some people, the idea of business and fun, they kind of don't go, together. At least they might conceptually, but not in practice. So can you unpack on that?
I can unpack on that. All right, like when I was looking at what I wanted out of the next stage of my career. So when I was back in a job and I was thinking about leaving, I was working with a career coach, and she got me to this fantastic exercise. She said, right, for the next month, I want you to take a book, write on one page, write things you enjoy, and on the other page, write things you hate. And she said, as you're doing your job, your current job, when you have a smile on your face, when you have this real feel-good feeling, write down on the page what I enjoy, exactly what it is you're doing, right? Is it you're presenting to an audience? Is it you are writing a long document? Is it, right? And she said the reverse. Whenever you're frustrated, you're like, write down on the page things I hate, exactly what you're doing. And we'll look at that after a month. So I did that exercise, and it was amazing. It was really enlightening, because on the page of things I loved, it was explaining new things to people. It was learning new things. It was meeting more people, right? It was about presenting. It was about networking, right? It was about that spike of, this is something new. This is something, right? Whereas the things I hated were doing the same thing day in, day out. Were filling in forms. Were being locked away in a room and not talking to anyone all day, even if it was doing something that on paper I liked. And some of it surprised me. I was like, I didn't realize it was that depth. So when I say fun, it is I built a business out of things that I enjoy. All right. I literally looked at that list and said, right, let's build a business that ticks all these things. And at the heart of that is helping people. Right. I still get the same rush today as I did. I don't think I mentioned to any of you, I started as a school teacher. I used to teach high school math and economics. And there's this great feeling when you're a teacher, when you get a student to understand something for the first time. It's like you can see the light bulb in the room go on. And the child doesn't realize it at that point, but you do. And it's the same in my work today. When I get teams working better together, even in a small way, you can see that light bulb and you're like, do you know what? Things are going to be different from this point on. And that goes into my fun column.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. If you can combine fun and your expertise and make an income from it, and while helping other people on top of that, it's a win-win situation.
The dream combo. Yeah.
Okay. Do you provide like well, maybe you're touching this already, like consultancy?
Yeah,
someone's trying to. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we're a consultancy. Yeah, so we offer consulting services to a variety of clients.
So, like, if someone is trying to improve their business, if someone is trying to start a business, like, what kind of consultancy?
So it is strategic consultancy. The reason I say strategic consultancy, it all starts with you tell me what your problem is you're trying to solve. What is your objective? Okay. Then I will help you, or me and my team will help you work out the strategy to get there and make sure that people buy into that strategy and that you're set up to deliver on that strategy. Because it's not enough to just come up with the strategy. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So that makes the third time that I've asked you. So now I have like a much clearer.
Now kind of but that's good, right? Ask more questions. I always tell people ask more questions because that's how we learn in life and that's how we get clarity.
Exactly.
So yeah. That's what we do. And sometimes clients don't need help with the thinking part. They're like, we've got a great strategy, just people aren't bought into it. So help us with the EQ, right? I talk about my business has 3 pillars, right? IQ, do you have the right ideas, the right strategy? EQ, are you taking people on the journey? Yeah. That's the emotional intelligence. And FQ, which is focus quotient. Are you focused enough to deliver on this strategy? If not, I'll help you with that. So sometimes they go, do you know what? The IQ is fine. We need help with the EQ and the FQ. Or sometimes they say, actually, the EQ is great. We've got loads of great people. We work well. We just don't have the right ideas. So can you help us with that? So our work varies across those 3 pillars.
Okay. I don't know where this example fits in that equation, but I think it was GM, General Motors here in the United States that this was in late 90s, I believe. They started making electric vehicles, right? And they made the EV1. And great business model, I suppose, right? Great product, wrong time. So within a short amount of time, they just pretty much took all the cars that they made and just crushed them, right? Because there was not enough demand, I suppose. I don't know. But now, right now it's like all about electric vehicles, right? Everybody's making the electric vehicles and then they're like all the hype. So the reason this comes to mind is because you're like, you need to understand, you can have a good product, but then you also need to understand people and how to market it and how to make that idea appealing to people. So what do you have to say to timing, right? Because in this case, they had a product that seemed to be good, like so good that when they decide to destroy their existing EV1s, people that owned EV1s, they literally held vigils for EV1s. So those that like the product, they really held on to it. But then, of course, maybe it was the business side of things that didn't make sense. Can you touch on timing and like how?
Yeah,
how does that work in the business world?
Well, timing's an interesting. Well, I mean, we've seen many great products fail because of timing, either because they're too soon, like your story, the EV1, or because they're too late. Yeah, right. You've developed a great product, but the world's moved on. We don't need VHS anymore, right? So it doesn't matter. You've invented a better videotape. Now, for me, that timing. If I come back to the 3 pillars and come back to that GM story. There's 1 or 2 ways that if I'd sat in that boardroom would have said, okay, this could be an EQ problem, right? As in you need to sell this idea to people who have no idea they need this solution. And that's a big ask, right? That's going out and saying, hey, here's something that you've never even thought of. But now that's been done before, right? If you think about the iPhone, nobody sat at home thinking I need an iPhone. You're like, I've really got a perfectly good phone. But Apple took it upon them to to really, flex that EQ side and more marketing side to get it there.
Yeah.
But the other way to look at it, if I was sat in that boardroom, is say, actually, before we launch this idea, right, there's something in the IQ pillar. Is this a good idea? I always tell clients, test your ideas before you put money behind them. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? There's two techniques that I use regularly with clients. One is a war game. Let's play out your strategy in a gaming simulation to see how it might fare and see what might jeopardize it. And another technique you can use is something called a pre-mortem, which is let's take any idea we have and assume it fails. And let's work out all the reasons it might have failed. So it's like a creative exercise, but in a negative way, right? So literally we could have taken that EV1 and said, here's the exam question. Let's imagine the EV1 fails. Let's now go around the room, get our greatest sticky on. Why has it failed? Let's go through all the reasons. Okay, it failed because we can't find enough lithium to build batteries. It's failed because there won't be enough charge points. It's failed because consumers will think the car looks ugly. It'll fail because, and literally, if you do this the right way, you'll get hundreds of reasons. Okay, right?
Okay.
And then the whole point of a pre-mortem is you then pick the top 5 or 10 of those reasons and flip it around and say, okay, if these are the things we're most worried about, how do we make sure they never happen? Okay, so if I'd been sat in that boardroom, I would say, let's do a pre-mortem, and we might have come up with, hey, do you know what? Consumers will never buy this as a big worry, right? We then would have flipped it around and said, okay, how can we get consumers to buy it? And we could have then assessed, is this going to be too big a hurdle to overcome? Let's not start the project if it is going to be the case. But equally, what if you look from GM's point of view, what did they get out of that project? They probably wasted hundreds of millions of dollars. But A, they've got a great story out of it.
Yeah.
B, it probably accelerated them this second time round when they came back to the table to build EVs. Because they're like, actually, 20 years ago we built EVs, so we already have some knowledge.
Yeah.
So there was some benefit. They got some objectives, but they didn't get what they thought was their original objective out of the strategy.
Yeah. Well, so why did you decide to start a business? Why not get a job like everybody else, I suppose, and clock in, clock out, and not have to worry about the business running and the things?
I guess because I'm a glutton for punishment, but do you know what? Let's take a cheek. Because it was linked to two things. One is when I looked at that list of things that I enjoyed, I literally couldn't think of a job that gave me all those, right? I was trying to retrofit other jobs. I was like, maybe I could do that, maybe. But B, a big thing on my list was variety and challenge. And nothing is more varied and challenging than starting your own business. Okay? I think it would be one of those things that if I hadn't done at some point in my life, I would have kicked myself. I would have been one of these people who would have, reached in their 80s and said, do you know what? I wish I'd just given it a go and created the business, I think it was in some ways inevitable, but, as has been proven, I really enjoy this sort of, the freedom it gives me, the reward, the challenge, but it is not for everyone. I can tell you that for certain. It's a certain kind of mindset, certain type of person. Are you the kind of person who is interested in starting their own business or has run their own business before, Moses?
I'm all over the place, right? I'm I guess there's a new term now. I think it's called like multi-potentiality type. I don't know. Yeah. It's like I will have something will capture my interest, right? Let's say it's like learning how to fly, right? And then I'll jump into it and I'll pursue it. I'll get my pilot's license, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, now I have my pilot's license, but like, do I want to work as a commercial pilot? Oh, okay, well, no, that's not what I set out to do. Okay, well, now I have a different interest. I like to communicate. I like to pass on ideas. I like to share my stories. So let's do a podcast. Let's stick with the podcast. Oh, while we're at it, let me teach people how to create podcasts. Like, you don't have to have all the tools ready. You don't have to have like the most expensive stuff. You just, whatever it is that you have, you can start with that. Okay, great. I can teach people how to do that. Perfect. And then the next thing is, another thing is going to capture my attention, right? So I'm like all over the place, right? So I still haven't quite categorized it yet. And so when it comes to creating a business, that becomes the difficult part is, okay, I want to create a business. So I will dive deep. So like a few years ago, I started a drone services. So I would just, if you needed a picture, an aerial picture of your house or your property or whatever, or a video, I'd go out, get the drone up. So I went, got the drone commercial pilot's license there, and then, well, I really don't want to fly drones for the rest of my life. Okay, well, now we're going to switch. So like my mind is like all over the place. So on the business side, I haven't found something that I'm like, I really want to do this till the end of time. But what I do appreciate in this way of going about it is whatever it is that I identify, I dive deep, I try it, I put my best foot forward. I go through the entire process until I run into the thing that makes me not want to do it, like in the medium to long term. Right? And then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to switch. So that does not answer your question, but like, I don't, with this mindset, I don't know how I can be, let's say, a regular 9 to 5, like clock in, clock out, because my mind is all over the place. And I don't want to create the habit of, switching jobs every 3 months or something, right? So it is, I'm still on this path of trying to figure out in the medium to long term what it is that I want to do. But until I find that, I'm going to identify different areas that I want to pursue them to the best of my ability. If the interest continues to be there, I'll continue to pursue it. If not, then I switch.
Okay. And do you have a bigger vision to your life? Like, where do you want to end up? And the things, I mean, you don't have to share it on this thing, but because these are just getting you somewhere.
Well, that's a good question. So, what I wanted to do this coming weekend, perfect question, is I wanted to create a vision board, right? Like a medium to long term life vision goal, and then break it down into, okay, what are the things that would allow me to achieve this medium to long term lifestyle that I'm dreaming of, right? And then, but that's a project for this weekend. So I don't have an answer for that.
Okay, that's fine. And it might take longer than a weekend, right? But what you're about to embark upon is basically the kind of stuff I do with companies, right? Set a vision, work out all the strategies that can get you there. And the strategy could be drones, commercial flights, develop an app. These are all just options, right? And often you go and explore an option. It's how far you go down that road to learn, test and learn, right? And I always say, can you work out, can you accelerate your learning on those options? Because if it's the wrong one, you don't want to be doing it for 5 minutes. All right. So find the shortcut ways to find. Now maybe something like those techniques that I talked about, like a pre-mortem, just before you start, you go and buy your first drone or whatever, just take an hour with a buddy or even on your own. What would be all the reasons that I stop working with drones? Just try and do it as a sort of creative exercise. And that might accelerate, you discovering whether drones are the thing for you or whatever. Right.
Yeah. That's, it's, I find myself like, the second that an idea comes to mind, right? Like, so that initial, what do you call it? Inspiration, right? The inspiration. Drones. Okay, let's go straight to Best Buy or whatever.
Exactly.
The store, you dive deep, and the downside to that, right, is like I end up spending all kinds of money on things, right, that would allow me to start that thing. But then when the initial spark runs out, then I'm like, oh well, I should have thought more about this. So I gotta find a balance somewhere.
You gotta find the balance.
It
goes back to what I said about human beings. They're easily distracted. Oh, look, there's something new.
Right. So I'm trying to avoid that with this podcasting, where it's like, well, let's not get like all the tools that we need. Let's not make any fancy stuff. We have an iPhone, so this camera this is a phone of mine. So I just have it in front of the laptop. I already have a laptop. I already had this mic for different projects. So it's like, well, let's just start with what we have. And in like 3, 6 months, 9 months, if we find that we need, pop filters, we need to decorate the room, we need to dampen stuff, sound dampening and all that, then we can get to that. But, for now, let's just use what we have. So that's the idea. That's the spirit. But I'm still not there yet, because I'm already thinking of like, I want to teach people how to make podcasts. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm going to need a subscription on this, a subscription for that. Yeah. And so I'm like buying. It's like, wait, slow down.
Yeah. It's very easy to go all in. Yeah. It reminds me when I was a kid, my dad was very smart, right? He knew that me and my siblings, maybe me in particular, we like that as well. We would like start stuff and then not finish it. Oh, Dad, I really want to play this sport. I want a bike and then not use the bike later. I really want to learn the drums and then not play the drums. Right. Yeah. So I remember, I'm the youngest of 4 and, I think my dad learned the hard way. So I remember one summer I was like, I really want to play tennis, Dad. And he's like, great. This is great. Yeah, great. I really want to support you. So he went to the garage and he came back with a racket. And it was his racket that he had learnt with when he was a kid. It was wooden. Yeah. And I said, Dad, what's this? All the other kids have a graphite racket, right? How can I learn with this? And he said, son, start with this. And just imagine if you can learn to play tennis with a wooden racket, by the time I buy you a graphite one, you'll be an amazing player. Right. So I started playing with it. But what he was really smart was he was testing to see, was I really interested in this before he went out and spent, $100 buying a new racket. And when I showed I was still playing tennis, then he went and bought me a racket. But I think it's a nice way you don't have to go all in.
Yeah. Well, so it's crazy that we're already by almost close to that hour. So are there any final thoughts that you want to leave the audience with? Let's start from there. Oh, actually,
let's start
before that.
Yeah, go on. Before that.
What's your absolute earliest memory that you can remember?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't been asked that. Absolute earliest memory.
Yeah.
Well, I've got as I said, I'm one of 4, so 2 brothers and 2 sisters and a brother. So a lot of my early memories are being surrounded by them, either positively, like warm fuzzy, or negatively, my brother bullying me, or stuff, or picking on me. So lots of memories of just, playing in our garden, are sort of the earlier, or family holidays. Like I can, and it may be a false memory, I can remember being on a holiday when I would have been about 2 or something in a pram. But I can picture it when I close my eyes, all of us being around the whole family. So, definitely earliest memories are all very family based.
And I suppose I haven't asked this before, but earliest dream, does that even count?
Earliest dream, I guess.
Yeah.
Can you? I couldn't tell you what my earliest dream was.
Okay.
I do remember when I was like, by the time I hit school, so it would have been about the age of 8. I used to dream at night before events where I was stressed. So say I had some homework for the next day, or had to go in and do a play or something. I would dream and I would talk in my sleep, and I would dream not about the thing, but about something unrelated that would scare me. So it's always fascinated that would only pop up during times when I was worried about something the next day.
Okay. My earliest, I have several, but I wouldn't be able to tell you if I lay them out on the timeline, this one came before that, but it's just, there's an age range. So probably somewhere between 6 and 7. one of the dreams, or one of the most occurring dreams, was me flying around. So I would dream of me just running as fast as I could, and then I would pick up so much speed that I would just take like a small jump, and then like open my hands, and I would just, not my hands, but like my arms, and then I'll just take off and fly. So it's just like weird that stayed in my head.
Yeah.
And then another one was I was on top of a building, and we were shooting a movie. Don't know why. And then like I was running, and then I jumped off the building, and in real life I had jumped off my bunk bed. My older brother was sleeping on the bottom one, and I was sleeping on the top. So I'm dreaming of jumping off of a building, when in reality I'm jumping off of the bunk bed and just smacking myself on the floor. So yeah. But anyways, so what? Any final thoughts that you want to leave the audience with as we come to a close?
Well, I'm not sure what my first thoughts were. I hopefully the audience have really enjoyed this. We've explored quite a lot of different things. And I guess, a central theme has been around emotional intelligence, around making, having a growth mindset. So being open to new challenges, new adventures, learning new stuff, but having some sort of focus on the direction that you're going in. Is a nice summary of all the things that we've talked about, both in my life and your life. And I guess a key component I always say is ask more questions and listen more, and your life will instantly be a better place. Whatever strategy you take, whatever direction you have, because the more you keep it in your head and don't go exploring, the less, not that your life will be worse off, but you're going to miss a lot of opportunities to be even better.
I like that. Ask questions, listen more. Faris, thank you so much for coming to the Moses Kabandana Podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Moses.
It's just, yeah.